to a rousing opening time win over the Raiders, making them 1-for-1 representing the Volunteer State. Here in Miami, who also won last week, but it was less than a rousing opener for Dan Marino. The man who's thrown for over 51,000 yards, managed a mere 105 yards and 10 for 26 passing against the Colts. A potential hairy situation in Miami? Let's check in with Leslie Visser.
Good morning. It's a bit of a mini drama here, Chris. Dan Marino is still the emotional center of the Miami Dolphins. His place in history is secure, but his job, that is a little less certain.
I did talk to Dan about it, and I said, hey, you know, there may be, you know, sometimes when you're not at 100%, either physically or not as well as you can play, that I would put Craig Erickson in there.
You know, it's part of football, and you know, if it comes up where Jimmy chooses to put Craig Erickson in, that's his choice.
It's like saying, well, we're going to put Michael Jordan on the bench. You know, we know Dan Marino's going to be there, and we're going to prepare for him.
Well, I want Dan to be the quarterback. I want him to be the starter. I want him to be a great player. You know, by the same token, I'll do whatever it takes to win ball games.
Do you feel you have something to prove, or you've just been around too long? And
You know, I don't have anything to prove. The only thing I have to prove is to myself. You know what I want to do. I don't have to prove for anybody else.
If it's gotten under Dan's skin, I'd rather not have an aggravated or a cranky Dan Marino to face.
I'll go out and do what I got to do to help this team win, like I do each and every week, like I did for 15 years in a row. So that won't change.
Marino knows that Johnson was upset with his erratic performance last week against the Colts.
I think the biggest thing is not hurry the throws. You know, we've got to be able to convert on third down. We only had 11 first downs. We only had 200 yards of offense.
For me, you know, I'm hard on myself, so, you know, there were cases when I rushed myself at times, trying to make things happen somewhat, but, you know, that's last week, and this is this week, so I'll just go from there. And the other thing, you know, I mean, we did win the game.
Forgot that.
Yeah.
Dan Marino, who has never been benched for ineffectiveness, knows he will start this game, but Joe, it infuriates him to think he may not finish it.
You know, Leslie, knowing the way Dan is, I don't doubt that it infuriates him an awful lot. And this game here is really a benchmark game for him. Sure, he set a lot of records in the National Football League, but this is a business of what have you done for me lately. I don't care how good you were, you have to perform right now. You got to remember, the Oilers' own home opener is not the season opener. I don't think my... Gary Pensick, Tom Waddle, and of course, Dan Jiggets is with us with Dan Marino. And knowing Dan like I do, he would have it no other way. Well, Joe, Dan and Jimmy did meet on Wednesday to discuss this, and Dan let Jimmy know he was not happy about the coach making this public. That being said, Craig Erickson still doubled his snaps in practice this week and may make an appearance on the field sometime today. Jimmy still may bring Dan back in the game. However, I'll say this. Jimmy Johnson wants the players around Dan to lift up a little bit, and there's a lot of heat on the offensive staff from the coach as well.
In Miami this week, and that's all the papers are talking about. Mort had a boy there for pointing that out. By the way, Zach Thomas is going to start today for the Dolphins at linebacker, so they get a boost there. Well, after a brief timeout here on NFL Countdown, JETS, Neil.
And they're able to look up into the heavens and say, hey, there's room for me up there.
44. Oh, 73. Oh, 73.
This is it.
I-16. I-16. Bingo! Bingo! I got bingo!
That's real.
Logo Athletic.
Goal is still to win the Super Bowl. Now, the consequences that those of us who are involved in this effort will face at the end of the year in terms of not winning the Super Bowl may not be as grievous as they otherwise would have been if everyone had stayed healthy.
It's still the same goal. You bet. Now, is it going to be more difficult? Yeah. Is it, how realistic is it? Who knows?
Is the 49er mistake dead?
I refuse to believe it is because I was so very proud of it.
It's a tremendous play by Warren Sapp, and Steve is still down. And Rice, who is rarely bothered, can't get up.
Professionally speaking, is this your worst nightmare?
I think that you look at this ball club, and they have gone through a turnaround, even though they've only played one game. You know, anytime a team goes 1-15 in a season, there's going to be some friction and animosity, even between teammates who get along.
So for Keyshawn Johnson and Wayne Corbett, who weren't exactly good friends before last season, things only got worse following the release of Keyshawn's book. It was a conflict that built as steadily as the Jets' failures.
You know, it's just that he's Wayne Corbett and I'm Keyshawn.
It's a little more of a, speak what's on your mind, Hollywood type of glitz and glamour kind of guy.
I mean, I'm me, he's he. You know, it's two different people. He comes from one type of world, I come from another.
To each his own. I just let him say what he had to say.
4 months later, Keyshawn Johnson said what he had to say. In print. In a controversial book in which he called Corbett the mascot of former Jets head coach Rich Kotite, and claimed Corbett should not be starting, that he's a situation guy, not a playmaker.
Everything that pretty much I said in my book, everybody was saying all year long anyway. They just didn't have enough to come out and say it publicly.
Reconciliation has been a long time coming. Johnson's criticism of Corbett, the team's leader in receiving yards the past 2 seasons, was not addressed until training camp.
With Keyshawn and Wayne, it was a bit of, animosity there because they really didn't get a chance to put theirs to rest before the public could really get to it and run with it.
The media wanted it to turn out into something as more than, the book. They wanted to turn into Keyshawn's jealous and Wayne. Wayne's performing more than Keyshawn. Well, this is not about Wayne and Keyshawn. This was simply about me writing a book about my life and what I went through as a rookie.
We had talked, I just said, I'm speaking to you as man to man. If you got something to say, you say it this way. And, some things came out in the open.
He looked me dead in my face and asked me if I had respect for him. And I said, I got more respect for you than you possibly could ever imagine.
We weren't really best of friends anyway off the field. We get on the field, things are fine. We communicate, help each other on the field. Off the field, there really is no relationship.
Touchdown! O'Donnell to Corbett.
A moment of elation led to the epiphany. Was it the end of a feud or just professional acceptance?
Me and Wayne are on I guess, speaking terms. We've always been on speaking terms.
One way or another was going to be handled, and it was. And I think that's, why we're able to go out there and, playing in good harmony on the field.
Everything has been put to bed now?
Yeah.
Strained relationships in the locker room do not necessarily translate onto the field. The Jets receiving corps was stellar in week 1. Neil O'Donnell gave everyone the ball, but it was only 1 game.
If we can stay as a team and don't bitter with each other and just stay strong and confident, I think we can have a successful season.
What if I was to say week 1 is a fluke?
And I would say, all those years that you played football, obviously you don't know anything. I don't think it's a fluke. I think it's something we established.
Coach Bill Parcells has done an outstanding job of handling this situation and brought in a system that works for the ball players and convinced them that you don't have to be best friends. And we who played it know this. You don't have to be best friends in order to be successful. And I think most importantly, he convinced Neil O'Donnell of that.
How many years you played?
15. I know 14. I know a little bit about what goes on.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's not quite.
You don't know anything. We've only just begun on NFL Countdown. Is there trouble in Carolina in the training room and in the locker room? Mortimer will have that story. Amazing comeback of the Bengals' Scott Brumfield. What could be going through his mind in Baltimore today? The 49ers learned Warren Sapp and the Bucs defense means serious business. The long road and apparent successful road back for the Pack's Robert Brooks. And the road traveled once again by the Bears' Brian Cox. Like MacArthur, we shall return.
Looking over his shoulder for captains in his book. The Patriots set their sights on the coach in Indy. Drew and his dudes own the horses in the dome, but the coach still has some kick left with Marshall healthy and ready to run. The Bolts look to rebound in the Bayou against the Saints, where SD stands not the man, so Jim's the god. But the Saints are fighting to get it done so Iron Mike can notch #1. The Bronx bust into the Northwest to hammer the Hawks. Lately, Denver's dominated, and Johnny Boy looks to continue the trend. while the Seahawks hope a new moon means a first win. The boys travel to Zona for a desert duel. Troy's troops have whacked the Cards 13 straight, while for Arizona, Leland leads the O and Rice rallies the D. In Monday's matchup, KC looks to cause a commotion in Oakland. The Chiefs have dissed the Raiders as of late, winning 7 of 8. Meanwhile, the Raiders' vertical game is back, but they still went horizontal in Week 1.
All right, let's focus on this Dallas team.
Helmet rule. We will penalize 15 yards on the kickoff. Additionally, we have unsportsmanlike conduct. Defense number 52 throwing his helmet as he's leaving the field in disgust, 15 yards, in addition to the original 15 yards on the kickoff.
Brian Cox once again, I guess, listened to Warren Zevon's excitable boy before the Bears' Monday night game in Green Bay, although he was ripped over late and what he felt were tricky substitutions by the Packers. But Dave Wannstedt and his team fined him $10,000. The NFL fined him $5,000 for the throwing the helmet, the unsportsmanlike penalties, etc. Today, Cox and the Bears tried again at home against Minnesota. Once again, the Vikings off to a quick start, thanks to Robert Smith's quick feet, all 169 yards of them. The Bears have swallowed Dennis Green's Vikings 4 of the last 5 times, but they're coming off a short week. Now, Tommy, Brian Cox and his outbursts, disruptive or in some way, silver lining now, helpful.
Well, it's a little bit of both sides, and I think the main thing is that Coach Dave Wannstedt knew what he was getting when he brought Brian Cox in. You get a very talented ball player, an emotional leader, who's also going to be out of control at times, cause you some penalties and cause you some difficulties. But I think the main thing is to remember, I was a ball player like Brian Cox with a little bit more emotional control. And I think at the heart of things is he just wants to win football games.
Took you 14 years to win.
That's right.
13 TVs, 14 years. It's the dawning of the age of Aquarius for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We're hoping that we'll one day look back at last Sunday's upset of the 49ers and be able to pinpoint it as the start of something big. Warren Sapp and the defense registered 7 sacks of Steve Young, Jeff Brom, and John Brody last week. And their young backfield of Warwick Dunn and Mike Alstott, that's fun. But they've lost 5 straight to the Lions and head to Detroit to face a Barry Sanders who mysteriously ran for only 33 yards last week, but who traditionally kills the Bucs. Here's Bonnie Bernstein.
Chris, the Lions are hoping to prevent Warren Sapp from making headlines a second straight week. 11 tackles, 2.5 sacks last Sunday against the 49ers, something that's got the Bucs defensive tackle puffing out his chest.
I think my total game is more complete than any other tackle in this league. And, you know, if somebody's better, show me.
Among linemen, he seems to think he's the best.
Oh, does he? Well, Warren is 1-800.
Join us for that. And then, of course, 9 o'clock Eastern Time. Are you ready for some football? On ABC's Monday Night Football, the Chiefs at the Raiders. Al, Frank, Dan, Lynn, and somebody at halftime. That's on ABC on Monday night. Still to come, Michael Irvin torched the young Steelers secondary. Can the Skins do the same? For Scott Brumfield, a day he was never sure he'd see, a celebration and a realization.
It's something I'll never be able to tell till I step in the locker room and walk out of the tunnel onto the field, and I'm looking forward to it with anxiety. I'm a little bit nervous and a little bit scared.
Well, Phil, there's no plot. Character development is conspicuously lacking, and there's nothing remotely poetic about the language. It's 33 pages of facts and numbers.
Interesting.
Bob, how shall I put... Okay, Bob, we've been discussing the official NFL handbook for Miller Lite. 18 million copies in print, available in 12 packs and cases of Miller Lite.
You know, I've spent years trying to create the perfect club. And yet, with all that's in my garage, the finest example of...
Steve Young to help ease that pain. He had felt enough of his own. After 3 concussions in 10 months, a neurologist told him not to play this week. While family members and others close to him urge him to retire, it's something that he's not ready to do. It's something he is surely not ruling out.
Are you comfortable that you're making the right decision to hang in? For those people who are most concerned with you, you're comfortable you're making the right decision to continue to play?
Well, I am definitely, maturely, I think, and thoroughly getting into this. I mean, this is not something that is simply anymore, oh yeah, you know, feel fine, let's play. You know, it's a kind of thing that you really take inventory and you really think about. Nothing I do now is quick or instinctive as far as a reaction. My decision making is thorough, deliberate, prayerful, you know, intense. And I think with that, I mean, to me, that's kind of where I sit right now.
The decision for Young is something only he himself can decide. But for Rice, this year, the decision was made for him. Total reconstructive knee surgery.
Can you win as consistently and as big as the 49ers have grown accustomed to this year?
Whatever hand we've been dealt, you know, you play that hand. We need to be creative enough. We need to be a little bit lucky. This team is built with a lot of veteran players who have been to the Pro Bowl, who have been to the top. I think this team is going to respond. I can see it in their eyes.
I really believe 49er history is on our side, and we can bring somebody. And by the end of the season, you will have a name or some names that have come up and made the 49er season happen. Football players and good football players have a natural instinct of, oh, you made a higher mountain? Perfect. It's just exactly what I wanted to climb anyway.
There are some, though, who believe the San Francisco 49ers are not the machine they once were, something the 49er organization simply does not want to hear.
Carmen, I don't get the impression at all over the years you're not an 8-8 kind of a guy. You won't settle for 8-8. But might not that be a reality, given what you're faced with?
The prospect of the San Francisco 49ers going 8-8 is truly unmentionable. If we didn't have the respect for the Fox network that we have, we wouldn't even address this question. But we
Field returned home to Utah
to deal with the thought of mediocrity as a...
Just seeing him not being able to walk,
There are a lot of questions we wanted to ask Steve Young about his future, but right now he made it pretty clear.
Throw the ball outside. Troy Aikman threw 4 touchdown passes against the Steelers last week. Sterling, Gus is going to have to throw at least 2 if the Skins have a chance.
And if the Pittsburgh secondary, Joe, plays like they did last year, he'll get those 2 and possibly even 4. The one thing that the Pittsburgh Steelers did is they blew some coverages in their zone blitz scheme. Let me show you the Dallas Cowboy game from last week, and you'll get a chance to see the zone blitz and how it's supposed to work, but how it didn't work. Right here, these 2 linebackers are going to blitz. And there's the blitz by the 2 linebackers. Darryl Johnson is going to go in short motion right here, and you're going to see very little movement from anybody else except for this linebacker moving over to get in the middle of the field. As we roll it, see Darryl Johnson go in motion. No one adjusts for Darryl Johnson. Troy Reed throws it outside. Donnell Wolford in a cover 3 deep zone should be standing right here. Now, I'm not saying Darryl Johnson get this ball, but I think Michael Irvin gets this ball, and the safety, Carnell Lake, should be standing right there. But because Donnell's hugged up here, everybody else is a man late. This is what you see, and here is what the end result looks like. If the Pittsburgh Steelers go out and they do this exact same thing in their zone blitz, TJ, they're going to give up a lot more touchdown passes this week.
Yeah, and challenges as well for Cordell Stewart and that offense. What they're going to have to do, and again, he's facing 2 outstanding corners in Darrell Green and Chris Dishman. They're going to force him to take the ball and throw it inside, find other avenues to be successful in the passing game. But maybe the most important thing is that Cordell Stewart has to be himself. And that means when everything is covered, take off out of that pocket, use your athleticism, and make something happen.
It'll happen when he's more comfortable.
That's right.
When he's more comfortable. Well, the Saints come marching home, Tommy, to the tune of a sellout crowd, thanks to Mike Ditka's influx of Bayou enthusiasm. Marching into town against the Saints with the San Diego Chargers 3-0 lifetime in the building. With ex-Saints Jim Everett to start as quarterback for the injured Stan Humphries. The Bolts embarrassed last week in New England, but they're bolstered by the return of Junior Seau. Not only looks good, but he addressed the team after Friday's workout. Troy Davis, by the way, he had the 2 2,000-yard seasons at Iowa State. He starts for the Saints in the backfield. We'll be back.